buen dia, good morning. So the idea of the talk is just to have a quick review or introductory talk about Geoservercloud. I'm not sure if all of you know about Geoserver. Probably you know the name at least. Then there is a new flavor version that is a Geoservercloud, and we will review a practical example of how to use it, okay? Like a kind of educational or kickstart point for implementing Geoservercloud, okay? Then you will, in the afternoon, you will have the chance to explore the technical aspect of Geoserver implementation with Gabriel here. But at this point, what we found with clients, it was that it was necessary to explain some stuff and also to reduce the gap in the technical concepts that are behind Geoserver and Geoservercloud and the whole ecosystem. So I'm Jose, working for Come2Come. I'm from Argentina, and well, my work basically is DevOps dev operations and development. So this is the agenda that we will have: some introduction, then context and designs for the example that I presented. And then we will see some features and thoughts at the end of the talk. Essentially what we will do is just focus on the practical. When we explore practical things, it's much easier to learn about something, okay? There are three key features that we will mention. It's maybe the main one that is for people that is interested in clouding is about the horizontal pod autoscaling. Just reaching to that point, it's complex, it's not easy, but that's the point here is that to show you that there is some way just to get that introduction quickly, and then you will be able to explore the rest of the stuff. The expectation is that we can bridge the gaps, the technical gap between not understanding how to implement it and try to facilitate the process of the implementation and adoption of Geoservercloud. Well, some context. It happened to us that when we need to explain what implies Geoservercloud, there is a bunch of things around. Okay, it's clustering, it's Kubernetes, it's Geoserver, it's GIS, it's a lot of things. Just to reduce that, it's a matter of experts. The point here is just to try to facilitate that process. So in the context, what we need to explain or just to share is the ecosystem, okay? You have Geoserver, Geoservercloud, and a Helm chart that specifically is something that we implemented because we use Helm. It's very opinionated. It's something that we prefer to do it, okay? To implement the Geoservercloud. Those are the three projects that allow you to get Geoserver running in a cloud environment, essentially. And we are going to use those ones. There are diverse ways to do that, essentially in the last project or the last topic that we have, that is the Helm chart. But for the cloud, what you will need is at least the two first components. That is Geoserver and Geoservercloud. Geoserver, almost 20 years of development, Java. Geoservercloud is kind of wrapper that split the functionalities of Geoserver. You need to understand very strongly the code base to split that and to rebuild that in a way that you are using a Spring Boot, okay? It's a jump in the complexity of how to develop with Java. It's not so easy, but it's possible and it's done. And the Helm chart is more closer to what I'm doing daily, that is the DevOps of that. That's the timeline, reduced and simplified. It's about you have what we are doing with this, or the idea behind Geoservercloud is that you are getting profit of almost 20 years of experience with the Java code, okay? Then it was necessary to jump to the next step is making it really simple to work or much easier to work in a cloud environment. So that way, that's the reason of the existence of Geoservercloud in particular. Then on 2020, it was starting Geoservercloud, and in 2022, we started with initial steps of deploying that we decided to implement a chart with Helm chart instead of trying to use an operator or another way to deploy the Geoservercloud. Essentially, Geoservercloud in the repo that is for the code of the Geoservercloud, it's using Docker Compose. It's quite simple to start that, but it's not essentially a cluster itself in Kubernetes. So that's for the development purposes, essentially. Okay, this is the important thing about what we are discussing, because the point here is going cloud. And going cloud is not only a Docker or a Docker Compose. It's about having several servers, distributing the components, and making it working in a cluster. So the artifacts, this is a terminology of software in particular, is that in Geoserver you have a WAR file, okay? In Geoservercloud, you use Docker images that contains or wraps those WAR files in a particular format. It's opinionated solution because it's also deciding just to simplify the complexity that is behind Geoserver with a manual deployment. And the last one is the Helm chart, that if in Geoservercloud you are taking decision or making decisions just to simplify things, in Helm chart you are doing that strongly. It's more opinionated than doing that in Geoservercloud. Always remember that the point is just to simplify things to allow getting involved on the use and implementation of this. Well, this is part of the history and mixing everything, okay? But the point is that what we mentioned, we are getting profit of Geoserver and moving to no re-implementation, just reuse of that and getting profit of the new things that provides clouding, okay? Then thinking loud, what we have is, I'm a user or a developer. And why I am asking this? Because when we try to share this with the customers, they are confusing, or usually we have a conflict between what they want to do and which is the use that they have for that. And accessing the right repository and trying to use the right repository for this. In particular, the Helm chart is something that you just get as a dependency, and then you need to use it. You don't need to change anything on the Helm chart repository. You just need to use it. It's different. Unless you want to help us to deploy new or to develop new features. So this is the difference, and this is the first question that I try to resolve with the customers when we are talking. We need to define if we are a user or a developer, and then to move to the right project itself. This project in particular is a simple deployment that reduces the complexity with a very opinionated things or decisions that we take for the future of your new deployment on Geoserver, okay? It's kind of educational, again. The repository is quite simple. If you can download it, it will take 5 minutes just to download it and get it started. There are 3 things that we will need to agree that are necessary just for starting to run the cluster in your local machine. You will be emulating that you have a cluster. That's not true. I mean, you don't have several machines together working, but you can emulate that, and it's something that you can extrapolate to the production environment, because it's going to be really that way that is going to work. So there are some requirements, and that's sorry for those that are not the technical guys, but we need that if you want to run it in your machine. It's a K3D that is emulating the cluster. It's the kubectl that is going to be used for Kubernetes management, and Helm. Okay, with these three things installed, then you can just run one command and it's going to start to have your own cluster on your machine. Don't worry, there are references on the README. It's quite simple to do the installation of those requirements, and then you can start the cluster. Well, one command is only that. Once you have those three things and you get the code, it's just Helm upgrade install. She has cloud config. That's the name I set for the namespace, but that's all. Okay, for the deployment, and it will start. What you will have, maybe here is not going to be really visible, but it's downloading, starting. And once you have that, you will notice that there are, this is for console, the kubectl get po command that is at the end. It's going to get to show you that all the different components on the structure of the Geoservercloud are running, okay? Then you can access, creating a port forward to the server, that is in this case is the web UI. We will point from our machine, emulating that we are communicating with the web UI component, and then we get Geoservercloud working, basically. It's Geoserver. What we are doing here is that we are splitting the components in several parts. Probably for the development side, you should attend the talk in the afternoon. Then you will notice, or you will be aware of what implies Geoserver Cloud as a whole new design where you are using a Spring Boot just to split services, okay? Features, horizontal pod autoscaling. What that means? That means historically, Geoserver, the code base, is hard to keep in sync. When you are talking about clustering, you need to make things working all together in sync. Okay. To make it with the historical Geoservercloud, or Geoserver code, what you have is that just to do that is not. It was not the principles of the design we are thinking about that. Cloud was almost 20 years later than the initial steps of Geoserver, so it was more monolithical or something like that. Just to say something. Then when you move on to the cloud, what you need to start thinking is that you need to sync things in a different way. Geoservercloud relies on communications using an event bus, that is Rabbit, and then when you have that, everything starts changing, because you are not doing code that is straightforward, following the one-by-one line of code. You need to wait for things. Everything is based on events. It's not going to happen in a linear way, okay? So why I'm mentioning that? Because when we talk about horizontal pod autoscaling, what we are thinking is the chance to create as many containers, and when I say containers, is Geoserver instances, as I want in a dynamic way. Suppose that I receive 1,000 or 1 million users just coming in this moment to my server. I can, with the horizontal pod autoscaling, what I can do is just get running only one instance at one moment and allow the system just to grow and create all the instances that I want automatically based on certain criteria, because it's about how much CPU I'm using or the memory that I have in the system that is used. And then it's creating all the containers or the instances that is necessary to attend to support those million records that are coming all together, okay? The horizontal pod autoscaling, that seems to be something simple in terms of what implies, is really hard to achieve. With Geoserver as vanilla, that what we call, that is the code base, the original, it was really hard to do that because the synchronization is not so easy to do it. It's more passive or depends on things that could be breaking at some moment. Geoservercloud fixed that. This example contains an original auto-scaling that allows you to test in your machine that that is happening really, okay? Other features. When you have that thousand of components that were created all together, what you will have is more demand on the backside of GeoServer. So some of the things that changed with Geoservercloud were the chance to save the data dir, that is the catalog, in a database instead of using the file system. That is good, but at the same time, you can have a lot of problems with the communication between the instances of the GeoServer with the database. So in this case, for this example, and just for showing how it's done, it's set, we set the data dir inside the PostGIS, okay? Instead of using reading and read and write files from the file system that it takes a lot of time, we are using a database access. And in front of that, we set PG bouncers just to do the scaling of that, the connections that we have for the database. Again, that's happening only in the context of Geoservercloud, okay? It's adding features, wrapping the Geoserver code base. That's the more intelligent thing that was done with Geoservercloud. Reusing everything, splitting that, and creating the things that allow to make it cloud really. Some considerations. In this example, we are doing something just to reduce complexity. Okay, so we remove all the data stores that you can use from GeoServer. In terms of, we are not allowing to do or to use any GRIB data store, okay? In particular, we try to reduce the complexity. It's possible to add things, but for the purpose of the talk, what we share is that you should use for vectors, PostGIS as a managed service if you want, a database, and that's all. No need to use another thing. For raster, cloud optimized TIFF, so you have the files in a S3 bucket, and that's all. And for integration, you can use WMS or WFS cascaded. With that, you have something that is useful, works, and it will do what you need. It's not necessary to do something else. Obviously, if you want to do more, there are more plugins integrated, but it's a curated list in GeoServer that was selected based on the experience. So for a user that is new on this, what you expect is that the expert will tell you what is good and what is not good to do in terms of GIS. So that simplifies the process. So final thoughts. Depending if you are a user or a developer, just focus on the right project. Don't try to understand everything. You just need to understand which is the project that you need, okay? Sometimes you will want to go deep. It's fine, but start for the first question. If I'm going to be an advanced user for deployment, but I don't want to do a lot of stuff more than that, handling that. I don't want to change code, for instance. So focus on the project that is useful for you. Well, the talk is about that, just trying to focus on that. If you have a new solution, if you need to develop a new solution, just get this kind of stuff and start from that and grow and educate or go deep depending on your needs, okay? Don't try to understand everything at the beginning, just one step at a time, and then just use Geoservercloud, because that's the way you will be able to move to Geoserver full features in a cloud environment. If you have an existing project, we could say that depending on the list of plugins or extensions that you are using, then it's going to be easier or harder to do it. It's not impossible. Probably if you are a current user or you have an existing server deployment, you will need to check what is possible to do and if there is some work to do, or probably if you need to move something in between environments. We have successful cases of doing that. It's not impossible, but depends on which are the kind of things that you were working with GeoServer, because there are examples like an unused or community model that you are using in particular that is not used by someone else and non-maintained, and then it's hard to say that it's going to be easier to include it in Geoservercloud. But it's not impossible. It's something that you can do also. So thank you for your attention. Expect to have a good introduction for you on this. You should attend, if you are the developer, you will want to go to the talk in the afternoon because that is more specific.